right set of circumstances, the right logistics as far as the tour. In fact, this time we literally routed our whole second leg of the European tour around the Israel date so that we could make it happen, not vice versa. And that was part of what our new management were able to accomplish, the people over at Q Prime. You know, they brought Metallica over there and Chili Peppers and other bands, so they already had a number of connections to make it happen. And some of it, to be perfectly honest, is financial, because I can convince the rest of my band to go over and not make any money. I can't convince them to come over and lose money. So we had to kind of wait till we got to the point where we were big enough that we could get the right guarantee. To be honest. Yeah, I mean, it's tough because I can't do as much as I'd like to. Istanbul or Dubai, because I have Israeli stamps in my passport from visiting my family, and I'm not going to go ahead and pretend that didn't happen just to appease people who don't appreciate Israelis in their country. So that's something I'm just not willing to concede. And unless I was willing to do something like that, wipe a whole new passport clean and pretend that I don't have any relatives in Israel, then there was no means of bridging the gap. You understand what I mean? So it's been difficult. So this time, like I said, we prioritized Israel for the second leg.
Thank you for that.
Oh, I had to finally make it happen. Feels great. Let's get more. I think part of the issue with why people tend to hesitate a little bit is because so many of my colleagues, unfortunately, despite my efforts, and I don't know if you know, but I sit on the advisory board for the Creative Community for Peace. So every time that a rock band is about to visit Israel, I'm one of the first people to contact them to try and reassure them to make sure that BDS doesn't end up getting in their heads, and that they don't listen to the ridiculous words of Mr. Roger Waters and the rest of his gang of morons. It's, I think, a problem because people don't believe that the bands are actually coming until you're really close to the date and there still hasn't been a cancellation. And of course, events like what's going on today don't help, but I don't care.
So you guys are coming?
Oh, there's nothing that's going to stop us. Short of a full-scale, open all over Israel war breaking out, which we know unfortunately is always a possibility, but there's nothing that's going to stop us from coming. In fact, the BDS crew know well enough to not even try to contact me. I think they understand my position pretty well.
Pretty good.
Oh yeah, you guys are going to be surprised. I'm not going to give anything away. Okay. Not a thing. I've been planning this for literally my entire life. So, I've been waiting for the day. We're also, my wife and I and my son, Lena and my son are going to join me in Israel, and we'll spend about a week, seeing family and touring around. So we're trying to make the most of the entire opportunity. Really, really looking forward to it. A day in Jerusalem and go around the old city, and we'll probably go to Masada and En-Gedi, and while we're in Tel Aviv, we'll probably go to Old Yafo and show them around, and things like that. I was talking about maybe Caesarea and some other areas, maybe going up into the Galil to some of the wineries, which I really love. I know we're going to spend a little bit of time in Eilat, so I can do some dining.
Nice. Eilat is good.
Yeah. We made a very conscious effort this touring cycle to evolve, given the name of the record. And part of what was very, very important to us was to try and do everything in our power to make people aware of the just horrible ravagings of addiction and depression that have befallen not only our colleagues within the genre, within music, but people all over the planet as a whole. And I think that people have also wasted way too much energy and time on divisiveness, on concentrating on what continues to pull them apart as opposed to what brings them together. And for me and for us and for what we have always tried to accomplish with Disturbed, unity and the strength of coming together is an incredibly healing thing, and something that isn't to be discounted, the power of it. And I think that if people can realize just for a moment, even if it's only a couple hours during the course of their year, that when they're together and they're united by their love of music and the healing power that it brings, that they're more united than they realize, or than the people who benefit from our being separated would have them believe. I think that's an incredibly powerful thing. So it's become a very important focal point to us. We've tried to make our show less of just a bludgeoning and more of a expression of humanity, if you will. I'm not a very good Jew. I certainly respect my heritage, of course, as you guys know.
Do you celebrate any holidays?
We light like Hanukkah candles with the little boy. She was actually invited by an Israeli family in Honolulu, who apparently there are like 50 Israeli families that are all do Pesach together, right?
Yeah, there's 80 people, so I think about 50.
Yeah, I mean, it's this huge gathering I didn't even know happened. It was someone that we met in our son's karate class. And I wasn't able to be there, unfortunately, but I encouraged her to go. I'm like, oh, you should experience it. You should see what it's like. And she loved it, so
fun.
It was
Nice.
an incredible experience. I'm very happy that she got to experience it. I still will occasionally fast on the fast days. I will...
We listen to Shabbat.
We used to. She actually has become
A very good shiksa.
a very, very well accomplished shiksa. She can make a challah that like is probably the best I've ever had. She does schug. She does. I have that.
So we
in
like
it too.
schug together.
Oh, jachnun, schug,
Yeah.
the whole thing. I love it.
Cholent.
Well, cholent isn't Timani, but yeah. She's taken on a lot. She actually makes a killer cholent too, so she has a little bit of Ashkenazi in her too. I mean, to elaborate a little bit on it,
Yeah.
besides just my, aggressive stance against it, the reasoning that no matter what side of the fence you sit on politically, and look, I don't think anybody in any country always agrees with everything their government does. I don't.
Of course.
Okay. But I am a very, very strong supporter of Israel forever and for our people. And regardless whether it's Israel or anywhere else, boycotting an entire society, an entire people, based on the actions of its government is absolutely ridiculous. And it doesn't accomplish anything. I don't see boycotts happening of Russia. I don't see boycotts happening of some of the countries that have some of the most oppressive, closed-off regimes in existence on the face of the planet, where LGBTQ people are persecuted, where all kinds of minorities are persecuted. I don't see people boycotting China for what they're doing to their Muslim population. It's just Israel that gets this treatment. And I think we all know the reason behind that. There's a special hatred that exists for the Jewish people in this world, and it unfortunately can't be explained. It's something that has lasted and has been deep-seated for centuries. And that's part of our burden as a people, unfortunately. But, you can't accomplish anything in terms of trying to create peace, in terms of trying to create understanding, by shutting things off. There has to be open roads of communication. You build bridges, you don't knock them down. And music and entertainment is the perfect way to bridge that gap. And the very notion that Waters and the rest of his Nazi comrades decide that this is the way to go ahead and foster change is absolute lunacy and idiocy. Absolute. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's only based on hatred of a culture and of a people and of a society that have been demonized unjustifiably since the beginning of time. So, you want to be able to bring people together, you want to affect social change on a real level, bring them together for a concert. It's the perfect way. Music builds bridges. And that is, the fact that anybody would try to dissuade artists from trying to do what their music was created to do in the first place is mind-boggling to me. And that the fact that any artists would actually fall prey to this rhetoric and this way of thinking is mind-blowing to me. They're cutting off their noses to spite their faces. It's just completely the antithesis of what creating art is meant to do. So. I want to fill Hayakon one day. I'd love to fill arenas of that size and stadiums all over the world. There's always another level to jump. Not everybody can be Metallica, and the series of events that happened that created the biggest bands of the world are very, very difficult to replicate. MTV as a promotional entity for music doesn't really exist anymore. It's more of a reality TV network these days. The rock radio infrastructure that used to exist no longer exists. So a lot of those combinations of elements that happened in the 70s, 80s, and 90s that helped create these monster bands are no longer there. So it's much more difficult, and it's a much slower and gradual process to grow. And in an environment where everything is digital and everything is mass consumed via streaming, it's a lot easier to get lost in the shuffle. So it's a harder, more uphill climb, but it's one that we're still willing to keep climbing. I mean, most of them we have. There's a bunch that we've never really had the opportunity. But when you have literally 115, 120 songs in your catalog, and we're doing, to the best of our ability, we're playing 2 hours a night now, and it's taxing. It's not easy, especially with the style of vocal delivery that I've been blessed to develop. It's not easy. So, and it's hard to get away from the hits. The fans want to hear the hits. And if you don't give them the hits, they're not going to be content and satisfied. And to a certain extent, neither will we. So it's this balance you have to try and execute each time. We try to keep things a little bit fresh and include some tracks that we don't normally play every once in a while. But the part of the challenge is when you build an aspect of production to the extent that we have, and every song has this entire built look to it, and different aspects of staging and lighting and pyrotechnics and so on and so forth. It becomes very complicated just to all of a sudden shove something in that you didn't prepare. So it gets trickier. For those bands who just go up there and don't have a whole lot of production and are just winging it every night, it's easy to do. But when you have when it's as pre-planned and produced as what we do, which is what we prefer, it's a little bit more challenging. But yeah, that's kind of the give and take of it all. We'll end up being in the room together listening to old classic rock for probably about an hour prior to the set. Just try and get in the right mind space, try and relax a little bit, and kind of harness your energy and get to the point where you're ready to let it explode.